So, sure, come on up.
What do you do when you approach a group of people? Let's say 3 or 4 people versus one person. Are you doing the exact same thing?
Right. Yes and no, because you can't like,
Yeah.
right. Watch when people broach a group of their friends, right? The eyebrow flashing and that sort of stuff happens as well. But what tends to happen is also not so much with large groups, because that's a very different dynamic. I'm talking
like
about a group of friends, 3 or 4 friends,
3 or
right?
4 friends,
What will tend to happen is they'll flash across the group, and usually in pecking order. In other words, they'll flash across them in terms of the group leader first, and then onto someone else, and then the last person will go, hi, welcome, it's good to see you too, right? In some social groups, there'll be according to connections, so people will go with the person they like best first, and then if the other people are more marginal. But it tends to be around status or connection are the 2 main things.
Okay.
If you don't know the group already, then you look for status things. As you approach the group, what will happen is the group gets interrupted, and they're going to start turning towards you, like, what is this interruption? Who deigns to interfere with our group? It's a social pack animal kind of response, right? And at that point, again, one of the people in the group, you'll notice, kind of takes a little bit of charge of the whole thing. Either other people will refer to him or her to find out how to respond to you, or they'll take a slight dominance posture. In other words, they might take a step forward, they might open up, they might be the one to raise their eyebrows, like, what do you want? Whilst everyone else kind of waits a little bit more passively. That's the person you begin with,
okay.
And then you can, again, flash the rest of the group and build that rapport with them. Does that kind of make sense? So with groups, especially social groups, you want to play with the leader first, and then the rest of the group. Do you want to know what you do if you mess that up and it doesn't quite go too well and the group gets a little bit cold on you?
Sure.
Right? You change the group. No, and I don't mean by leaving it, you change the group you are with. And the way you do that is very simply, let's say these 3, do you want to just see this? You guys come up here a second. So let's assume these guys are a group. Do you want to come up with them as well? So you have a nice little 3 group. And let's say, for whatever reason, you just over here just so we can have the camera kind of see you guys, your expression and stuff like that. They're having a nice little chat. You're a group. You know each other. You 3 know each other. There you go. That's much better. Wow, friends, eh? Right. Oh, yeah. All right. So they're a group, and I'm kind of like, I'm going to talk to them. Let's say I'm doing some street hypnosis or something like that. And for whatever reason, I get a sense of like, I can't get it. Maybe I messed up my timing. Maybe I wasn't quite feeling it. Or I don't know. Maybe they're just a little more closed. What I need to do now is change this group dynamic. See, every time a group changes, in other words, the group dynamic changes, there's a reassignment of roles. In other words, people will start looking, who is now the group leader, right? And if you want to be the group leader, the easiest way to do that is say, hey guys, have you met my friends yet? Come on up, guys. Come on up, Yuchi and Nama, come on up. Meet these guys. These guys are amazing. Now, I might even know these people, right? But if I introduce them, here are my friends, say hello. Don't be shy. Come on, don't be shy. Now, look what just happened. Do you see how the group dynamic is starting to break up? I'm beginning to split up the group. Go and say hi to them. These guys are really nice. You'll enjoy this. Now, folks, turn this way a little bit. Let me show you something about what hypnosis can do. Did you see where the attention has just gone? Do you see how it automatically directs towards me? What I've done by bringing in a new group is I've broken down the old group's social boundaries. I've increased their anxiety levels because now they're having to fight for status again. It's just part of how a new pack merges. Whilst they're busy trying to figure out where they fit in that pack, I now have the ability to take control of the group. I have now put myself in this leadership position saying, guys, come with me. Let me just show you something. Right? This is me now creating a new group. And now because the other thing is, I'm the introducer. I'm the one who's put the 2 groups together, provided I keep my mannerisms in the right place, in other words, in high status, not offensive, not like, you guys are schmucks, I'm the best, right? But high status, so I'm still polite, but high status. And I begin to ease the social tension, which meeting new people has. Now they look towards me for guidance because I've just eased the tension that I actually created in the first place as well. Do you see how that works? And you saw this happening instantly, because even though these guys know each other to some extent, the minute I changed the group dynamic from where the minds were at, where did they start looking at? They started looking towards me for leadership. Why? Because they're so busy trying to figure out where the pecking order is. They need some guidance that will assist the whole process is usually accepted. This is kind of like doing an instant induction, isn't it? There's a little bit of shock, a little surprise, a little bit of what's going on here, a little bit of evaluating going on, and then I am presenting a very clear suggestion, a very clear message of how to understand this whole thing. This is a kind of, you can call this an instant group induction if you like. Right? It's really the same process, it's just, it looks different. And when you do this in a natural way, this is very important. It has to be very natural, otherwise if it's forced, it looks a little awkward. No one even knows it's happened. No one even, it's just invisible. Because it's just part of, they just feel one way and they feel another way, it's just part of the interaction, exactly. Does this make sense to you guys? Yeah? You find this useful? Yes. Thank you. Let's give the guys a round of applause first of all, and come on up. Come on up. So the question here is, what happens if you leave the group after you've joined them? One of two things. Depending if groups go through phases, through cycles, right? If you have allowed the new group to establish itself as a group, if you leave, the group will remain. In other words, they'll remain as a group, and then you can rejoin them as part of that group as well, right? The natural pecking order will just shift to the next person being the natural person in charge. Whilst you're gone, number 2 becomes number 1, and so on, right? If, however, you leave the group before they've had a chance to bond, to connect as a group, and that can be anywhere from seconds to minutes to sometimes hours or days, depending on how you manage the group dynamics, then they will naturally separate again. They will go back to the original groups because that's when usually what will happen is, unless there's a very dominant personality who will either take over the group or typically will just take over his group, say, nice meeting you and goodbye. The other thing that will typically happen if no natural leader emerges straight away is there'll be like a little socially awkward pause, like, nice. Oh, John, tell me, what was going on? And then they'll have a chat amongst themselves, and they'll start having a chat amongst themselves, and slowly they'll drift off. There'll be 2 groups standing next to each other very clearly. That's what tends to happen. Make sense? And think about it, in terms of your own experiences, isn't this the kind of stuff that you have experienced for yourselves? You've felt yourself, you've seen yourself, you've watched interaction and go, oh, that's kind of interesting, right?